Okay, at this time, we will call to order the Rockbridge County Board of Supervisors meeting for Monday, January 8th, 2024. We'll now do a roll call vote. Supervisor Lewis.
Present.
Supervisor Day.
Here.
Supervisor Ayers.
Here.
Supervisor Lyons.
Here.
And Supervisor McDaniel is present as well. We will hold citizen comments near the beginning of the meeting. We will do our best to take citizen comments remotely. There are two options for citizens to offer comment. To join by telephone, you may dial into one of the numbers listed on the county website. The webinar ID and password are there for your convenience. Citizens wishing to simply view the meeting live or after the fact can do so on the Rockbridge County Board of Supervisors YouTube channel, also available on the county website. If you wish to make a citizen comment as a Zoom meeting participant, you will use the raise your hand feature. You can press the raise hand button at the bottom of your Zoom window or press *9 if you're calling in by telephone. At this time, I will open the floor for consideration of the 2024 chair. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I nominate Leslie Ayers as chair.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Mr. Day.
Yes.
Mr. Lyons.
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Sure.
Ms. Ayers.
Yes.
And Mr. McDaniel votes yes as well. At this time, I will turn the gavel over to Ms. Ayers to conclude with the rest of the meeting.
Thank you. We will now hold the vote for the vice chair.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to appoint Supervisor Lyons as vice chair for 2024.
Okay, is there a second? I'll second. Okay, Mr. McDaniel,
Yes.
Mr. Day. Yes. Mr. Lyons,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
And I vote yes. All righty. We will now have a prayer for the board, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Those attending are not required to participate, but if you would like to join us, please stand.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for your many blessings. And as we start this new year, we ask for your continued blessings on the board members, instill wisdom within them, and give them the courage to make the decisions that are the best for the county. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, consideration of the Board of Supervisors meeting schedule for 2024. At this time, we will consider this as the board have any requested changes to the proposed schedule as posted in the agenda package. If not, is there a motion to adopt the 2024 meeting schedule?
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, Mr. McDaniel,
Yes.
Mr. Lyons.
Yes.
Mr. Day.
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
And I vote yes. Changes to the agenda. Are there any recommended changes to this agenda?
No, ma'am.
None? Okay, recognitions and presentations. And I would like to recognize Supervisor McDaniel for his service over the last 2 years. His leadership and communication skills with other members has really been amazing. He's been an amazing role model to me, and I just want to thank him for that. Citizens' comments. We will now welcome citizens' comments. Please note that those wishing to speak about those items advertised for the public hearing can do so during that portion of the agenda scheduled to begin at 6. When your name is called, please address the board at the podium stating your name, your first name, last name, and magisterial district. Please limit your comments to no more than 3 minutes. There is a timer on the table for your convenience. Is there anyone signed up to speak in person?
Yes, ma'am. We have two, Stephen Hart.
Okay. Mr. Hart?
Steve Hart, Cars Creek. Sorry for coming again, but like Inspector Colombo, stuff keeps bothering me. The paper says that you're going to consider spending $20,000 on an airport study today. And I'd like to ask you not to do that. I've come in here several times talking about debt. If you find $20,000 without a name on it, you're several $1 million in debt, and that's where that should go. If you do manage to find $20,000 and decide to do the study, I'd like to talk about where it's going to end. Believe it or not, the Army actually taught me to design airports. I know how to do it, and I've done infrastructure stuff for about 10 years. You're going to need 200 to 300 acres to build an airport of the type that you want to build. It's got to be in a very specific type of area to get the glide paths to work right. You're going to need to borrow the money to do that because we don't have the money and the money to acquire the land and the money to build the site. Once you do that, you got to acquire the land. Some of us are rather attached to our land, and folks probably won't want to sell. So there's probably going to be an eminent domain fight, and that's not going to go well for some parts of the county. Then once you get all of the land and you get the construction done, what we're going to do is we're going to shove an airport right down the front porch of some houses in the county. And unless the people that are involved in this, that are leading it and are proponents of it, will commit to sell your homes, your businesses, your farms, and move to the end of that runway and have the stuff fly over your house, please don't, because that's what you're going to do. That's what government has the power to do. And it never fails that the people make that decision, never seem to end up on the end of the runway. And that's where it's going. And if we're not willing to do that, if we don't own up to the fact that what we're going to do is we're going to come up with these 200 to 300 acres. By the way, your directed impact area is probably in the 4 to 6 square mile range. If we're not willing to own up to the fact that we're going to do that to somebody, then let's not start, because that's where it ends. And frankly, I don't think that's a good place. And besides, anybody in the county that needs the services of a general aviation airport has already figured out how to deal with the fact that we don't have one, and the rest of us don't care. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. Was there someone else?
Yes, ma'am. We have a Norma Jeffer.
Let me just make one comment. We will be having a public hearing. Would you rather speak at the public hearing, or
I was gonna say, perhaps I signed up for the wrong
we
sheet
will
of paper.
put you on the other sheet of paper?
Oh, thank you.
Okay. All right. Is there anyone online who has their hand raised to speak?
Yes, ma'am. Susan Wood. Ms. Wood, you're muted. There you go.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I have two comments, and then also I wanted to make a comment on the airport, and I can do that now or later. The first is, could the board provide to the citizens of the county the average cost for a Maury Express rider? And that would be county riders. And I want the average cost, which is based on all the county expenses and how much that would be per county resident. And also tell us how many county residents actually use it. I've never heard that information, and I don't travel to Lexington now. I live in Glasgow. I don't travel to Lexington often, but usually when I see these buses, you know, it might be 1 or 2 people on them. And of course it'll be around lunchtime or whatever. But it just seems to me that I'd like to know what the cost is and if there's a cheaper alternative. And for instance, using a car instead of a bus, a minibus. Secondly, I don't know if this board has actually voted yet on the proposed solar facility up at Natural Bridge Station. And if they have, I'd like to know what that vote was. If not, when that will be voted on. And then my third comment was about the airport. I don't know if you want me to.
Ms. Wood, let me stop you. We do have a public hearing on the solar field. coming up later. You can make your comment now or later, and you feel free to make your comment on the airport.
Make it now or later?
Yes, ma'am. I think that would be good. Yes.
Later?
The airport would be the time.
Okay, now. Okay, well, I would just like to ask most of you. I know some of you were born in the county and some of you have moved here. And what do you love about this county that you continue to reside here? I mean, I grew up, I was born here. It's because we're primarily a rural place. We love animals, we love birds, we love fresh, clean air. We don't like airplanes flying over us all the time. And then another question I might have is that since you bought this expensive property from from Berkstresser, is that property that you're considering using for this airport? Is that why you bought it?
Ms. Wood, your 3 minutes is coming to an end.
I'm done.
Engage. Okay. Right. Thank you. Is there anyone in the meeting room who wishes to address the board but did not sign up to speak? Feel free. All right.
No one else online either.
Approval of the November 27, 2023 and December 11th minutes. 2 sets of minutes were included in the package for the board's review and adoption. Are there any questions or comments for either set of minutes? If not, is there a motion to adopt these minutes?
Make a motion to adopt as presented.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Lyons?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Consideration of the school appropriation resolution. Mr. Harrison.
Yes, the resolution for the school for Fund 50 is in the amount of $1,015,467. And that's all.
Are there any questions or comments? Not, is there a motion? Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Mr. Day?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Lyons?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
And I vote yes. Consideration of the finance report and county appropriation resolution.
The total amount of bills this period is $1,035,317.88. Additional appropriations request of $18,161. 50% of the fiscal year has passed. Total revenues year to date is $35,290,120. Year to date expenditures is $30,481,327,000. So a difference of $4.8 million, $8,793. Year to date sales tax is at 52% or $2,218,080. Mills tax is at 61%, $1,682,790. And lodging tax is right on track, 50% at $919,706. And included in your board packets and online is all the reports that go behind that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Harrison. Are there any questions, comments? Not, is there a motion to adopt the resolution?
So moved.
Okay, second?
Second.
All right, Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Lyons?
Yes.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
And I vote yes. All right, presentation of the 2023 CAFR by Robinson Farmer Cox and Associates.
Hi, everyone. Mr. Harrison's pulling up the slides. I'll introduce myself. I'm Sadie Bagoon. You're fine. Of Robinson Farmer Cox, the partner overseeing the engagement. I'm here to talk about FY23's audit results. And I'll start by congratulating the county on the prior year. Each year, we've been discussing this when we come and present the report. The county has submitted the FY 22 report to the Government Finance Officers Association for their certificate program for achievement and excellence in financial reporting. So during the FY 23 cycle, the county received notification that you were awarded that certificate of excellence in financial reporting, and that was the 9th consecutive year. So shows the county's consistent, strong financial quality of financial reporting each year. So, got some slides for you. I think they're almost here. I'll go ahead and talk. In performing the audit, we have a few main reporting objectives. The first and most important is our opinion on your financial statements. So we've issued an unmodified opinion on the financial statements. That means we feel those financial statements are materially correct and they conform to generally accepted accounting principles. I'll take it from here. Oh, is it shared?
Not
Did
quite
you do
yet.
that?
Do you see Ashton as a attendee by chance, Spencer?
Oh, no.
If you promote him to a panelist? Yes. Panelist.
Gotcha.
There he is.
Absolutely.
Bingo. There we go. Perfect.
Thank you, Chris.
All right, I'll catch us up here. Okay. On the screen now is our audit opinion, unmodified opinion on the financial statements. So that's a clean opinion. And I'll talk about some of the other reporting requirements we have here. So in performing the audit, we're also looking at the county's internal controls and compliance in relation to government auditing standards. And we're also looking at your compliance and internal controls in relation to federal grant programs. So this year, we did not report any material weaknesses in internal controls, but we did identify one area where we considered it a significant deficiency. And that was in relation to payroll controls at the school board. Some of you may know or may not know there was some turnover in that area at the school board during FY 23. During our audit testing, we identified some errors in withholding and employees' pay. As well, we also identified one area in compliance in relation to Virginia retirement system. So there are some requirements there. There's one requirement for a reconciliation to be done between payroll records and Virginia retirement system contributions each month. And that reconciliation was not being done or not timely. So those issues we found with withholding also were issues with VRS reporting. So we have communicated those issues with the school board. They have provided a response to our findings, which is included in the report, as well as a corrective action plan. We did not determine that those issues were material to the financial statements. That's why this item is not a material weakness. What we're communicating to you is a significant deficiency. That's an item less significant than a material weakness, but still worth communication in the report. So the only area where we identified those weaknesses was at the school board. All other areas tested, no non-compliance, and then no material weakness or significant deficiency aside from what I've communicated. In relation to federal grant compliance, we tested 4 major federal programs for the county. 3 of those are school programs only: the Child Nutrition Cluster, Title I, Education Stabilization Fund. And then the 4th program is combined. It has funds both expended by the county and also by the school board. So Together, those are considered. So as a result of our single audit, we did identify one area that resulted in a qualified opinion in our opinion on the single audit programs, the compliance with federal awards, just for the coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery fund. The other programs were fine with no issues of noncompliance. What was identified for that state and local fiscal recovery fund is it was observed during the audit that a vendor payment was made to a vendor. The invoice was actually for a different school system. The invoice was for Roanoke County Public Schools or Roanoke City Public Schools. The acronym, I believe, was used on the invoice RCPS. This invoice was paid by the school board and then subsequently submitted for reimbursement under this federal grant. So the dollar amount claimed under the federal grant was $228,816. And here again, the school board has responded to our finding in the report. At the very back of the financial report, you'll find their response to the finding as well as their corrective action plan. Okay, that's the summary results of the audit. Now I'd like to go over some highlights from the financial statements as well. What I have on the depicted on the slide here is a summarized statement of net position for the county. And it kind of compares year over year, FY22 and FY23. This slide shows the entire aspect of the county. So both governmental activities and business type activities. The governmental activities will include the general fund and both the school and county capital projects funds. The business type activities here include the Blue Ridge Resource Authority. So overall, the county's net position at year end amounted to $49,757,000. The net position increased by $5.3 million over FY23. The governmental activities increased net position by $5.9 million, while there was a slight decrease in net position coming from business type activities or the Blue Ridge Resource Authority of $576,000. I'll just draw attention for users of the financial statements to the management's discussion and analysis, which is included in the report. And it can be found on pages 4 to 15 of the report. It gives a great analysis of what drove the change in net position for the year, and it's written by the county's management. So very useful tool to have if you're looking for like an executive review of the report. I'm going to talk now, drill down a little bit and talk about just governmental fund activities. The numbers I'm referring to are found in exhibits 3 through 6 of the financial report. These are on the modified accrual basis, just like the way you budget. So the numbers look a little bit more like what you're accustomed to seeing throughout the year. The county had a total fund balance at the end of the year of $43.6 million. And that was an increase of $4.8 million compared to the prior year. The general fund carried an unassigned fund balance at the end of FY23 of $29.8 million. And at the end of the year, the county had unrestricted cash and cash equivalents in the governmental funds of $39.8 million. So I have a chart here that shows you the fund balance for governmental funds over, I think it's a 6-year span. You can see fund balance has been consistently on the rise the last 4 years. Included here, as I said before, is just governmental activities. So the general fund, the county capital projects fund, the school capital projects fund. And you can see the increase that happened in FY23 was largely in the unassigned category, which is depicted in gray in the chart on the color scale. So unassigned fund balance increased about 3.6 million compared to the prior fiscal year. Now, we always like to look at this one particular ratio, a lot of ratios during the audit, but this one is a good indicator of financial health for a locality. So we'll take a comparison of the unassigned fund balance and compare that to that year's general fund expenditures. So for FY '23, the resulting ratio was 39.45%. The county has set a minimum policy here for this threshold, for this ratio of 20%. So consistently over the past 5 years, the county has been well above that minimum threshold, ranging between 30 and 39% for this ratio. I'm going to drill down a little bit and talk about just the general fund only, some analysis of budget to actual for FY '23. So revenues came in $739,000 over the final budget for FY '23. You can see several categories showing strong revenues compared to the budget. Property taxes and other local taxes in particular, and also interest income obviously performed quite a bit better than what was initially budgeted for FY '23 as interest rates were on the rise. One area that came in, where revenues came in under budget is the federal revenue. That's just due to the timing of revenue recognition for ARPA funding. Those revenues were budgeted in FY '23, not fully expended. I'll talk some about the general fund expenditures now. General fund expenditures came in under budget by 7.5 million. That you can see several categories where in all categories came in under budget on expenditures, the largest category being community development, and that's where those ARPA expenditures were budgeted. So that sort of the flip sides, both revenues and expenditures are your big variances, that ARPA grant money. Just timing of when it's going to be recognized. Now, included in the report, there's some statistical information that shows you, there's a whole section on statistics that shows you some historical data on the past 10 years. There's a few charts I like to draw attention to. In particular, this one is in relation to property tax collections. So the total levy for the fiscal year amounted to about 34 million, and about 32.9 million was collected in the year of the levy. So that's a collection rate of about 96%, 96.62. You can see historically the collection rate for taxes has remained between 95 and 97%. And this one I added this year, kind of interesting to see the change in other local taxes for the county. You can see the top 3 lines here, which are sales tax, lodging tax, and meals tax, have really been on the rise since FY 2020. So, indicates, I think, good economic growth here for you all. The only local tax that's not showing, or that's either, everything else is either flat or, up a little bit. The motor vehicle license tax, that's due to a change in the tax structure during FY '23, moving from a every year registration to a new vehicle or new to the county vehicle registration. So I'll talk briefly about the Blue Ridge Resource Authority, which is the enterprise or proprietary fund activity for the county. The Blue Ridge Resource Authority ended the year with a deficit net position of 3.2 million. Blue Ridge Resource Authority had overall operating income of 632,000 for the year, which includes a non-cash charge for depreciation costs of about $1 million. Overall, after considering the non-operating activity, there was a decrease in that position for Blue Ridge Resource Authority of 576,000. And that's really driven by the change in the estimate for landfill closure and post-closure, which resulted in a swing of about $1.4 million for the year. All right. So we've reached the end of my presentation. We've provided a memo to management with some recommendations and as well as some upcoming GASB pronouncements that are coming down the pipeline. Our journal entries have been provided to the county and will be reflected in the ledger. We had fewer, last year, I think we had a recommendation that we'd like to see fewer journal entries, fewer material journal entries, and there was for sure improvement during FY23 in that area. As I mentioned, at the back of the report, the school board has provided their corrective action plan in relation to those issues we identified in the audit. And once again, for FY23, the county's report has been submitted for that government finance officer's certificate of achievement program. So we're very optimistic and hopeful that we'll once again be congratulating you next year on that. That's all I have for you tonight, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Anyone? If not, I'd like to thank you very much for your work on our behalf. Mr. Harrison, for your hard work and everybody that was involved, the Finance Committee. Thank you.
Thank you.
Consideration of provisional adoption of the,
We got
oops,
public hearing.
we sure do. Alrighty, we will move on to the public hearings.
Yes, sir.
Stuff together here. Alrighty. Life Chapel, public hearing. We're gonna, Mr. Sladen, would you present, please?
Yes.
Sorry, take your time. I didn't mean
Oh, no,
to.
that's okay. It was in the reverse order. Mr. David Lively, Senior Pastor and President of Life Chapel Incorporated, 70 Hines Lane, Lexington, Virginia, 24450, has made an application for a special exception permit to develop and operate a campground. The properties are owned by Life Chapel Incorporated with that above address and are located on the west side of Hines Lane. The properties are located in the agricultural transitional zoning district per section 603B, period 03-8 of the County of Rockbridge Land Development Regulations. Campgrounds are used by special exception in the agricultural zoning district, transitional district. Properties are further identified as tax map number 61A1-A, 2A, and 61A1-1-1B, totaling a total of 4.83 acres per tax records. On December 13th, 2023, the Planning Commission held its public hearing and has recommended approval of the special exception permit with the following conditions. Number one, location of the camping area shall be in substantial compliance with the plans titled map showing proposed location of camper / trailer travel trailer, Life Chapel Incorporated, dated November 28th, 2023. Number two, campground is limited to one RV, one camper RV, travel trailer, or park RV model. And number three, approval contingent on building department, Virginia Department of Transportation, and the Public Service Authority. With that, I'd like to turn the floor over to Mr. David Lively, again, Senior Pastor and President of Life Chapel Incorporated. If needed, we can use the mapping as a resource.
Sure. Hello.
I've never done this before, so I don't know
Oh, no, you're presenting.
Okay,
You're-
yes,
you're-
the objective is to put an RV on the site so that our missionaries and our evangelists, when they come to town, will have a place to stay. Without us putting them in a hotel. For financial reasons, it's much more, it's less expensive to do so.
Of course.
We're just requesting one for that purpose, and it will only be someone that the church invites in to do a service with us.
Okay. All righty. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Lively?
So why wouldn't you just add on to your building?
Money.
There you go.
It costs a lot of money to do that, and then changing the structure of the existing building is, although anybody would like to donate us, we'd be glad to put a wing on to do it, but it's fine, financial reasons is what it is.
All right. Anyone else? All right, I will open the public hearing. Is there anybody? Mr. Lively, you can sit down and maybe someone will have questions for you later.
No one signed.
Okay, no one signed up. Anybody online?
Ms. Wood had her hand raised, but it's been raised for a while. Ms. Wood, are you wanting to speak on this public hearing?
I just would like to make one point.
Okay,
I don't have a problem with what the pastor said, but I think the county needs to assure that such authorizations aren't to be used for homing or temporary shelter for illegal immigrants.
alrighty, is there anybody else online?
No, ma'am.
Alrighty, anybody that did not miss their opportunity to speak? Okay, then I will close the public hearing. Is there any more board discussion?
Chris, is there any restrictions to the number of nights an individual can stay?
There are not in this particular case. Other campgrounds, we have utilized that in the past. With this being not your normal traveler, if you will, we did not. The planning commission has not made any recommendations pertaining to the number of nights. It is, of course, has conditions limited to one spot, but again, that did not. A condition does not pertain to the
Right,
duration.
one spot, but someone could stay there forever, right?
Someone
way
could,
it's written.
that's correct. Yes.
Is there a limit to the number of people that can reside?
Just one spot, one camper. So again, the location map that's in your plans or in your agenda package dated November 28th, 2023 show the location of it. So it'd be substantial compliance with the location behind the existing church. And then the campground is limited to one camper, RV, travel trailer, etc. But short of that, there would be no stipulation that a family of 4 or more could stay in that camper. It would not allow for temporary tent sites associated with it. When it is campground is limited to one camper, that does specify that.
Mr. Lively, you said that it was only for people coming in to speak at your church.
Speak in the church, missionaries that are traveling around the state, they'll come in and they'll stay with us. And then on occasion, we're allowed to get interns from our college, and they'll stay for the summer and work in the place. And then if an evangelist comes through, he'll stay with us. But someone that the church is having work in the church itself. It won't be rented out or used for anything else other than ministers or servants that are actually working for the church itself.
But there's no, I was just going to clarify, but there's no way to prevent that in the.
I don't believe so. Of course, conditions have to be sound, reasonable, because conditions associated with the special exception permit must be sound, reasonable, and associated with the use of the property. And then they also have to be enforceable. So with some of these conditions, as far as the verifying who is staying there would be problematic. Well, one could be discussed with it sound, reasonable, associated with the use of the property as a campground as far as who's staying there, but then also the enforceability of it could be problematic.
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible, or would you keep a log or anything like that of who stayed or when they stayed?
We'll have that in our minutes of our board. When the board of our church invites someone to come in, it's then that recorded in the minutes. They're coming in for this weekend service and what they're doing. You'll, if you would like it, I don't know if you want us to send you a report.
I was just
Someone
thinking
that's gonna be
if
preaching on it
Mr.
somewhere.
Sladen or someone from community development had a reason to want to inquire, you could provide that log to them at that point in time.
Minutes of our board meetings. We do them every month, and you'll have a record of who was here and what service they were in. And
Mm-hmm.
we'll be glad to furnish you with that at any time you request it.
Yeah, only if requested.
All righty. Any other?
Sir, how many people do you foresee staying in the camper at one time?
It could be just a minister, that's a missionary, or his wife, if they come together, and if they have children, they'll be there for the weekend. The whole thing will only sleep probably 3. a double bed and a twin bed.
So what do you do if you've got your person who's working there during the summer?
That would be an intern from the college. It would be one person if we can get one. We've never been able to get one yet because we haven't got a place to keep them. But it's if you have a youth pastor that is a graduate of the college and they're going to it, then they have to do an actual intern in a church somewhere. And if we can, we would like to get one in to do that some summer. They work with our program for the kids, and we have a summer camp we do for our kids, but for the whole community. We've had as many as 160 children from the town that came in, and we've had a weekend or a week vacation Bible school that we've done. It'd be nice to have them work with that if we could get them in. It gives the ministers, future ministers, an experience. They get to preach and they get to teach the young people, and they meet in the board meeting, learn what it is to be when you just throw someone in a church that's never been in a board meeting, it makes it kind of difficult for them. But this is a training thing as well. But right, we've never been able to get one because we haven't had a place. But mainly this is for ministers and missionaries, people that are actually working in the church on Sunday morning.
All right. Is there anything else? Any other questions? I'll close the public hearing if not. Gentlemen, any other discussion? If not, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt the ordinance.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All righty. Mr. McDaniel,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mr. Lyons,
Yes.
Mr. Day.
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Say it 1 minute. Pastor Ali, I'd just like to thank the Life Chapel for supporting the community with parking and such at high school events. We do appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
All righty. Next, we'll move on to the continued public hearing from November 27th. U.S. Hilltop Solar. Mr. Slayton.
I'll share my screen on this one, please. USS Hilltop Solar LLC, care of Environmental Resources Management Incorporated, ERM, has made a special exception application to permit a 3.00 megawatt, that's AC power solar project. Property is identified as 331 Lloyd Tolley Road, Natural Bridge Station, Virginia 24579. The property is owned by Douglas E. Brawford. I will note formerly Douglas E. and Joan E. Brawford trustees. Address above, Natural Bridge Station, is further identified as tax map number 113-5-D and consists of 141.614 total acres per tax records. So to orient everyone, this is going to be Wolf Faulkner essentially traveling east to west, and then traveling due south is Gilmore's Mill Road. Again, tax map number 113-5-D, consisting of 141 acres, is outlined in orange. There, portion of the property that is proposed in a solar facility is in the agricultural and general use districts. That's the A2 zoning district, while the remaining portion of the property and the solar project is in the agricultural transitional zoning district. So again, the Brawford property is outlined in orange. The pink on the map is the transitional zone as currently mapped. And the white on the map is the agricultural and general use districts. Per the solar project, proposed solar project, you can see it's outlined in magenta here, approximately 21 acres of the Brawford tract, with the proposed access being shown in gray. Again, it's approximately 21 acres of the Brawford tract. The portion of the Brawford tract that is proposed to be utilized for solar facility is currently being used for hay production and cattle grazing. On October 11th, 2023, the Planning Commission held its public hearing and has recommended denial of the special exception permit. On November 27th, 2023, the Board of Supervisors opened its public hearing and has continued the public hearing until tonight's January 8th, 2024 meeting. The purpose of the continued public hearing was to provide additional time for staff and the applicant to address some of the questions and concerns that were raised during the agenda item discussion. Concerns included the ability to modify the proposed landscaping plan, confirming the amount of excavating / grading associated with the project, limited or no increase of stormwater runoff from the site, additional information on the company itself, and further review and modifications to the decommissioning plan. With that, I'd like to turn the floor over to Mr. Dan Sapler, project developer with USS Hilltop Solar LLC, and Rachel Tippett, planner with ERM Management. All right, I believe this is just up and down there.
Thank you, Mr. Slayton.
Absolutely.
Good evening, board, and thank you for having us back here. I'll try and do a better job of talking into the microphone. We did make a few more adjustments to the site plan as well as our presentation tonight. So we'll just highlight those as we move through. So one of the things that was brought up at the last meeting was a question surrounding, why solar projects are, coming up in Virginia. So I just wanted to touch on the fact that Virginia recently passed the Virginia Clean Economy Act. So what that does is requires Dominion Energy to be 100% renewable by 2040. So as a result, every year Dominion proposes a RFP for a PPA, or a power purchase agreement. So we entered this project into Dominion's RFP process and were awarded in 2022 because, they thought this would be a good site for the solar project. We didn't make any modifications to this slide, so I'll just introduce Rachel and she'll talk about the modifications that we made to the site plan.
Good evening, Rachel Tippett, ERM. My colleague Justin On stepped in for me last time, so went through all the notes, did the best I could to catch up on everything and all the concerns you had, but please stop me if something wasn't addressed as I'm going through everything. Still trying to catch up with what I missed last meeting, so sorry for that. So going up,
Sorry.
no worries. So going over the site plan, again, this is pretty similar to what you saw last time. I'll just go very high level again. We're having about 20 acres of disturbance on total on site. Again, a 6-foot fence, 12-foot gravel roads throughout the site. The big things that we did change, staff had come to us and asked if we could add additional buffer. So if you see along Gilmore's Mill, that kind of hashed area, that is the 50-foot buffer that we did have in place last time. We were requested to add additional bufferage across from the residential property. And if you kind of go up a little to the north, maybe, I don't know if the mouse will show on, there we go, yeah. So right here, we were asked to put in additional buffer. So we added 100 feet of buffer width-wise. Let me see. So it's about 190 feet total, 50 feet back, just to buffer this property. And then we were also requested to add additional screening around the driveway. Previously, we kind of had it where the apron ends, but our engineer was able to go back and ensure that there weren't any sightline issues. We didn't want trucks having to pull out and not being able to see fully. So we were able to bring that landscaping all the way to the driveway to really screen in that as well. That was the big changes that were on site. Again, notable features, we do have a 50-foot buffer around the karst area right here. That was our own doing. There was nothing in the ordinance that said that needed to be done. We just went ahead and did that. And we are retaining the vegetation along Gilmore's Mill that already is existing. And that was about it for updates with the site plan. And I will turn it right back over to Dan for a few.
Thank you. So another one of the concerns was pertaining to noise. So the two main facets that will administer noise are the inverters and transformers. The inverters will exhibit 63 decibels and the transformers will exhibit 61. So the 63 decibel is just essentially a cooling fan. And then as you get 50 feet away, the decibel value will decrease to 39, which is somewhere between a whisper and a refrigerator hum. And then obviously as you get further and further away from the inverters and the transformers, the sound is mitigated. I would also like to note that there will be no noise at night since the array won't be active. The sound will be mitigated by the existing planted vegetation. The inverters are located at every fourth row of panels. And the transformer is located at the equipment pad. And then I did make note here that the closest inverter is approximately 200 feet from the Brofford's property line, and then the transformer is 275 feet. So almost a football field for the transformer. There are some questions about the panels themselves. Again, we are using Jinko Solar. It is a Chinese company. However, they do employ hundreds, if not thousands of American workers, and the panels are actually manufactured in the United States in Jacksonville, Florida. We only use tier 1 monocrystalline panels. They're comprised of silicon, glass, and aluminum. As mentioned last time, these panels pass the T-clip test, which is the toxicity characteristic leaching procedure, essentially illustrating that the panels are not hazardous. And then there was a study conducted by the International Energy Agency, which concluded that these panels do not present a cancer risk per U.S. regulatory criteria. And then I did want to go more in depth into construction. So the array will be under construction for roughly 6 months. As I mentioned last time, the bulk of that will be roughly 2 to 4 weeks. We'll install the gravel access road, then the racking, then trench the wire, install the panels, install the fence, then the poles, and then interconnect. Again, the longest lead time item to get this thing up and running is interconnecting it to Dominion's infrastructure. So just getting the necessary, Dominion representatives out there to get the thing hooked up. As far as grading is concerned, we're proposing grading being introduced to 6% of the area. We just are going to cut the high spots and then fill in the low spots. And I did also want to make clear that no dirt or earth will leave the property. And then as far as the seeding and screening planting is concerned, first step will be, to determine if herbicides are needed for, any perennial grasses or plants. If so, we administer. If not, we'll prep the soil with a disc, rake and smooth, broadcast the cover crop, broadcast the native grasses, smooth over, and then broadcast the flower seeds. I think, I did distribute a glare analysis to the board, and I did include these 2 diagrams within the presentation. The one on the top left illustrates, I guess backing up, the diagram in the bottom right kind of helps explain the diagram in the top left. So these panels do use anti-reflective glass. So as you can see in the bottom right-hand corner, the diagram compares anti-reflective glass versus conventional glass. And as you can see, 96% of the light actually gets through the anti-reflective glass and 4% is reflected versus 9% on conventional glass. As a result, in the top left-hand corner, there was a study conducted and solar panels essentially don't administer as much glare as anything to the right of this bar chart. So, that includes water, forests, grasses, etc. And then we talked about this last time, so we can glance over it, and then Rachel can talk on stormwater.
All right, so I know you guys had some questions about stormwater. Just want to reiterate that this is just the initial phase of approvals for this project, that we will be going through DEQ, stormwater, erosion sediment control, all those calculations. There's a lot that goes into it following any approvals from this effort. So there is more to come, but we do have some initial numbers. Currently, we are going under the guidance from DEQ, Virginia DEQ. So they issued a memo in April of 2022, basically allocating what solar sites that had interconnection agreements in place before December 31st, 2024. So next year, what you would classify as impervious. And so those items are listed there. And those what our engineers are looking at as impervious services in terms of their calculations for the site. Because the site is relatively small, we are eligible for nutrient credits. We reached out to the Natural Bridge Nutrient Credit Bank, and they do have availability. I think in total they have like 50, 60 some credits available. We would just need 2.45 of those credits to cover our impacts from the site. I went through and listed out the codes in the Virginia code, and then also through the Chesapeake Bay Watershed Nutrient Credit Exchange Program that provides a little more background on that program. So essentially, in order to qualify, you have to have under 10 pounds of phosphorus load reduction per year. Based on the impacts from this project, we're about 3, so nowhere near that threshold. And that's kind of a broad generalization of stormwater. I talked to our engineers this morning. They haven't run the numbers yet from the increased impacts from the additional landscaping that we put in. But he's told me that the anticipated stormwater runoff could be handled by the drainage along Gilmore's Mill. So no significant increase in stormwater from the site, from development, going in compliance with DEQ and what DEQ has laid out for solar sites of this size, and then working through the nutrient credit program as part of that. Again, going through the KOPs, the one thing I will add, roughly this KOP is kind of in the spot where we're adding that additional buffer. These were done a while back. So just imagine that there'll be more vegetation planted at the initial stage, and then it will be even denser at the 15 years of growth. This KOP is from, if you're at the top end of the parcel, looking south onto the property, and then again, from the church, looking back into the woods. Those visualizations are there just to show that's where the footprint of the solar site would be. You can't see it with the existing vegetation that exists. I believe Justin kind of hit on this again, compliance with the comprehensive plan, since there's no specifics to solar, going through and kind of highlighting where our plan or design meets the land use goals of the existing comprehensive plan. And then just a high level overview of everything that the application has done to be in compliance with the land development regulations. We have not requested any variances to our design. As part of that, we are working actively with VDOT to not only get a low volume commercial permit, but also doing a speed study on Gilmore's Mill to make sure we have the sightline safety figured out during construction. And then again, as I mentioned, those stormwater erosion sediment control permits will be coming later. Some things that we have done, so we have relocated the access drive per staff recommendations. We have put that 50-foot buffer around the karst features. We have also implemented a more stringent landscaping on ourselves, and then added that additional buffer for the residential neighbor. The visual simulations were added that we had, the speed study, the decommissioning cost estimates, which were updated and provided back to y'all today, and also that project narrative package. And that is all the updates we had with our presentations. Happy to answer any questions that y'all may have about the project. So thank you.
Stop sharing.
Alrighty, let me just, I will open the public hearing, but I do want to comment that if you spoke before, your statement is part of our public record. Of course, you're welcome to speak anything that was said here today, but just keep that in mind. Alrighty, so I will open the public hearing. First person,
Jen Jeffers. Jeannie, excuse me. Jeannie Jeffers.
I don't have a prepared speech for you all this evening. All I can tell you is that I live directly opposite where this solar panel proposed pop-up place is located. And it's going to be in my line of sight directly out of my window.
Could you lean in
Oh,
towards the
I'm
mic?
sorry. I'm gonna leave. Sorry. I believe Mr. McDaniel has stopped by our home last week to see the exact airspace that we would be, I don't know what the word is other than to say our view would be compromised. And if you have a beautiful mountainside compromised by solar panels, which I'm not against solar energy, it can also disrupt our resale value of our property and our home. What brought us to this area was the love of the mountains and the fact that it is a beautiful place to live. And then something struck me yesterday when I was out riding. I was looking at House Mountain, both Little House and Big House. And I just wondered what solar panels would look like up there. I don't know if that's something that can be permitted, but the point I'm trying to make is we have to do so much more to protect our land and our views and our mountains and the people that live in it than to have these solar companies pop up and want to put panels in. And finally, I just wanted to add that I have been getting, I call it junk mail for solar panels.
Jeannie, your time is, we'll just wrap it up your
You
time.
done?
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I could get real passionate, but I'm going to just say.
Thank you very
I'm
much.
against it.
Let me remind you that 3 minutes, we should restrict our comments to 3 minutes. Next.
Next is Justin Tolley.
My name is Justin Tiley. I live at 527 Lloyd Tiley Road, just on the other side of the hill. In the map, if you were looking, it's in the top left. I just, everything Jeannie said, basically I'm on board with that, and thinking that it seems to be a little bit shoehorned in the end of the county when there could be other options or other locations for solar. That coupled with the fact that, you know, in the Natural Bridge Station community, we've got it's more campgrounds and people floating the river, you know, that type of area of the county. I just think, you know, just to kind of sum it up, I think there could probably be other generally better locations for solar and efficiency with the efficiency and also being in such a national park area of the south tip of Rockbridge. Thank you.
Next is Norma Jeffer.
Thank you so much. I don't have a lot to say, but what I did, my brother took some aerial pictures of the area in question, and that 20 acres planned is in shadow a portion of each day. It's also in the morning mist in the valley. This is not an area that's going to have all day of sunshine. And a point that I wanted to quickly make was, with so many people against this project, and with it's not a place that gets a lot of sunshine. Why? So I have these if you all would like to see them. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next one that was signed up is this Wood.
I guess he's all saying.
Ms. Wood, if you, okay, you're unmuted.
Yes, I want to sort of reiterate what the lady just said. I'd like to know how much solar energy we would have had put out from this farm in the month of December and so far in January. I mean, our weather has not been very sunny at all. And this is not atypical. Of course, the fire was, but the fire would have, prevented anything hitting it. And secondly, I had asked at a prior public hearing on this to find out how other communities where this company has installed solar panel farms, how pleased they are with it, and whether it has actually done anything to help their citizens with their energy needs. Because I don't know that this is going to help us at all. We'll pay for it in one way or another, but I don't know if it's going to actually help us any out of our checkbooks. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris, the next.
That is everyone that signed up.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak?
He's going to bring up pictures. You've seen a lot of views that the company has provided right across the street. So we brought some pictures from our front porch. And then also based on the other project in Fairfield that was approved.
Would you mind moving the mic around so you can?
Sorry, my name's Teresa Bullock. Based on the other project up in Fairfield where the U.S. Solar Company was approved, I believe it's 30 acres instead of the 22 here.
Might have to move on. Would you like to just make your comments?
Yes,
Yes.
I apologize.
Oh, I think everybody here has been to the site.
Oh,
Yes.
fantastic.
So we know what
Okay,
we're looking at.
so, yes, ma'am. So last time I spoke, thank you, sir. Last time I spoke about the effects on our small business. So looking at the drastic difference between what our property looks like and then what is going on in Fairfield with the storage units, the construction going on, the large piles of dirt, the effect that will have on our business. I'm sorry, I've lost my complete train of thought here.
Take your time.
Help me, please. Come on.
Sure. Would you state your name? Yes.
Tracy Hip, Teresa Bullock. We live on Gilmore's Mill where the house is pointed to. I think you've heard from us before that, we're concerned. We moved to 700 miles to be in this beautiful place for this zoning proposal. We would not have made this move. We would have not have made this investment. We don't want to live next to a solar plant. That wasn't in our plans. And I think before we spoke about serious concern about how much this is going to decrease our property value. I still don't understand how we recoup that. Our small business that we run, thinking about we pay taxes on that. People don't want to vacation next to a power plant. All of my clients talk about that, they rave about how beautiful and tranquil and peaceful it is. And I was realizing today, it is the gem, especially the view from this farm, because we've got mountains, river, and farm. It is the gem of our little community. And those vacationers that come in, they're not going to come in. They're not going to spend their dollars in our little community. They're not going to support our little grocery store down the road. So I guess, we think about, does zoning changes have negative community impacts? And clearly they do. You've already heard it. Your constituents don't want it. We've been to every meeting about this and everyone is opposed to it. At minimum, we need ordinances in place that we can feel confident about, that will preserve the character of the community.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. Chris?
That was everyone that signed up to speak.
Okay. Is there anybody online?
You do have one more. It's a
Okay.
Heidi Woodward.
All righty.
Ms. Woodward, if you want to unmute. And
Hello, my name is Heidi Woodward, and no, I'm not against solar, but I do have some real concerns with the amount of projects that are being proposed, the amount of projects that are under construction and what they look like. You know, the barbed wire on top of the fence across from the school is, disheartening. Sounds like we're going down that path again. I understand there's at least 2 more to 3 more proposed in Rockbridge County. What is the reason that Rockbridge County is having so many proposed fields? Yes, this county is being touted, for their views, and it looks like that's not being taken into consideration at all. Are we powering, the 3 additional fast foods, the 2 additional hotels that have popped up in the last couple months? It's very disheartening. Not quite sure why we moved here either. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Woodward, what is your magisterial district, just for the record, please?
I'm off Mackey's Lane.
Okay, thank you.
All righty. Anything else? Anyone else? All right. Then I will close the public hearing for discussion.
Chris, did we have Rachel's slides
Yes.
in our packet?
No, sir.
So this is, this is the first time those have been visible, right?
Which one? Like the revised site plan has been in your package. Which slides were you referring to?
The ones that were up when Rachel was talking. I'm sorry, I don't know your last name. I will address you differently.
And I also talk about the site plan where we have the additional
If you're going to speak, you need to speak in your mic.
I think the slides, were you referencing the stormwater slide? Yeah. There's a bunch of info in that one.
And that's general
Some
information, not unique to the project.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and this was just updated, but you should have gotten the site plan already, so
Yes.
shouldn't have been new.
Yeah, just to,
one of the ones I was after.
Yeah, no, this was an updated site plan with the revision date of December 18th, I believe that is, December 18th, 2023. So this was included in your package. And essentially, if I could briefly review the modifications, this is the Gilmer's Mill residence, the HIPS residence, if you will, and that is located here. So what has happened since then is we increased the buffer length, and then also it appears to double the length of the buffer in front of there.
That's not one of the ones I was
Okay.
questioning, so don't worry about it. If it was in there, I suppose it was.
What's not obvious here is where this property sets in relation to the road and the adjacent property owners.
Sure, and so I can modify. In fact, I'll do this if I could. So this was one landscaping increase here, as far as mirroring the image, doubling the distance in front of the residence, and then also the last one that you really couldn't see too well was they had a void, if you will, on the left and right hand side of the proposed entrance, and that void has been negated. It has been closed in, if you will. So as far as in reference to where it is on the property, I think this will be the best. Bear with me.
Perhaps the view from the road.
You mean, so this is pretty much as far as to get everyone oriented, I'm gonna turn off the zoning, just to leave one less layer. So again, the Crawford tract, approximately 141 acres outlined in orange. The magenta is the property, is the fenced-in area, I should say. This is the HIP house, HIP residence, located at 115 Gilmer's Mill Road. And so the doubling of the vegetation took place in that area.
Chris, this is the site where the road does most of the blocking of the solar
It is,
pan. Can you
it's a correct
describe
statement
that?
to say that the HIP residence is at or below grade. And then you go to the road, if you will, and then there is another hill, a bank to go onto the Crawford track. At this location, I should say, once you go around the corner and go to where the proposed entrance is located, it does get more flat as far as topography goes with the road. Now, just to get everyone oriented with the Jeffer residence and where that's located, one of the Jeffer residences I'm aware of is located at 200 Blackbridge Lane, I believe, is the Jeffer residence located here. As far as distances away, it's approximately from the closest point of the fenced-in area to the closest point of the Jeffer residence is approximately 0.6 miles, 3,300 feet, approximately, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
And then Mr. Tolley, I apologize, I don't have his address, but the Tolley, what's it? Sorry. 527 Lloyd Tolley is located here. Just for discussion purposes, we can also put on the contours as well.
So as I look at that from the road, it went up and then.
Yeah, as you
that
look
hill.
at it, and in fact, I'm gonna try to turn on the aerial photos. Sometimes it doesn't like wireless. How about that? Okay, so this will give you a better idea of from the road aspect and or as far as geographically in comparison to the road. So most of the times that I went out or talked with y'all as individuals on the phone, you parked at the existing entrance. That existing entrance is almost verbatim where the proposed low volume is going to be upgraded to low volume commercial. So that's located here. You can predominantly see this tree line from the road, and then this is going to be the top of the ridge here. This is the top of the ridge. This is the top of the ridge, and so obviously the proposed solar facility is located below the top of that set ridge that you can see from the road, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
These are the sinkholes that this Tippett was referring to, located here and then here. Existing sinkholes.
All righty.
And I may attempt to address some of the questions the community.
Please,
Like.
absolutely.
I think some are
yes.
better suited as far as the dollars and cents of the actual project, as far as the amount of power with shade and what was done. That's not going to be me. That would be better suited by the applicant. Of course, they're hypothetical. About additional information on the company itself. Last week, 2 weeks ago, I think it was last week, actually, I sent the board of supervisors a copy of some information. We did do some research on the SCC website. They are a licensed entity to conduct business in the Commonwealth of Virginia. I believe their registered agent is in Hanover County. In addition to the SCC information, we also sent you a website associated with the company that goes over community profiles. Company profiles has information on a large number of employees there and other examples of projects. Of course, I think Mr. Sappler stated last time this was their first in Virginia, and that goes on to his statement on, I think, the last citizen comment, why Rockbridge County. It's, as y'all know, it's not only Rockbridge County, it's all over. This is something relatively new across the Commonwealth. And the reason that is because of the Clean Economy Act and that requirement for diversification of the portfolio of energy power.
Mm-hmm.
And another part as far as so that touch base on additional company information, why Rockbridge County, as far as the visibility, visibility from the river. We have studied that as far as it's not highly, if it's visible at all because of topography, it's not highly visible from the river. As far as visibility from Walk Faulkner Highway or the Natural Bridge property itself, or different campgrounds that are in the area. There is one campground that's south of Gilmore's Mill. Excuse me, two different campgrounds on the same property. It's south of Gilmore's Mill Road. They will of course have visibility of the project. But other than that, your tourists going to let's say Arnold Valley area and the Natural Bridge itself, that this project is not visible from those main traveled corridors, I should say.
Thank you, Chris. Anything? Discussion? Can I ask you a question? Give me, and it's probably in here, and forgive me if I've skipped it, but I'm very worried about the impact of the inconvenience of the installation and how long that will drag on. So yes, if you will please.
Yep. So the installation of these things is relatively quick. Again, it's 2 to 3 weeks. And, I think from an inconvenience standpoint that you're probably referring to is when we install the racking and pile drive that in, that'll take only 5 days. So honestly, if someone's putting up a home, it's probably more loud than the installation of this array as far as a pile driving racking is concerned. So relatively.
So 5 days. 5 days is the. Can I ask you another question?
Yeah.
The 6% that you discussed, you meant 6% of it would be disturbed, or were you talking about grade?
6% of the confines of the array would be disturbed or would be graded.
The top to the bottom?
Yes,
that's what
exactly. Then to address the production question, we do run a lot of modeling before making all this investment into these projects, just to make sure that these arrays are going to produce enough electricity to be profitable. We're building arrays in Maine, we're building arrays in Minnesota, we're building arrays in upstate New York. There is a lot more sunlight down here than there is up there. So this is actually a pretty viable area from a production standpoint. So just wanted to address that.
Thank you. Any other questions? Sir, I've closed the public hearing. Sir, I've closed the public hearing, correct? Yes, so sir, I'm sorry, we're going to close that. We're going to ask direct questions. Any other questions?
So is there more sunlight here in Rockbridge County that you could capture than it would be in Wyoming?
I'm not sure about Wyoming. Our company currently, just isn't developing out in Wyoming, but more in Minnesota, Maine, and New York. So.
I don't have questions. I'll make a few comments since it's in my district. I believe I'm a firm supporter of landowners' rights and landowners being able to, they pay their taxes, they own the property. Within reason, they should be able to do what they want on the property. At the same time, I understand that farming is becoming more difficult today. It's increased cost for farmers. It's economic impact on farmers is very, very challenging time. However, having said that, I don't agree with Mr. Sladen's comment about not being visible from Work Faulkner Road or Orange Valley Road. I believe both of those corridors, you'll be able to see the project. And, you know, it's always a question of right place, right time. I'm just not sure that it fits in with the area that they're wanting to put it in. And I'm not a big, you know, I know you've heard some stuff about view shed, you know, a view is what you make it, and it's what's there. But as you visit the property, it's surrounded by woods, farmland, mountains. It's not like it's right next to interstate. It's not like it's right next to a commercial or industrial center. And I'm just not sure that it fits for the area.
I correct me if I'm wrong. I think Mr. Sladen was talking, it was a specific place on the road that I said you couldn't see it. And you said as you moved up, you could. I believe that was your comment, but would you like to address it?
I think you can, when you get down to Natural Bridge Station itself around the bank area and you're looking up during the winter time, you can certainly see the peak of that hill. And so it may have been, if I didn't use the word highly visible, I apologize.
I feel like that this piece of property, it's 15%. It's about 15% of the overall property, I believe, that that is owned. And I feel it's really important that we consider neighbors, but also consider the applicant who is trying to save his farm and needs perhaps an alternate way to do that. I heard people discuss their value of their property and their business, and I think we need to consider the applicant's property and their business. Spending a lifetime farming property and trying to do that. I think I like this particular is because that it has and I thank everybody involved for working so hard to keep it, to minimize as best that we can from the view shed. There are many things that are allowed on this property. If you've ever lived next to a subdivision that goes on for years, the in and out and the building and the grading and all that happens, if you've ever lived there during that, you know that 5 days or 2 weeks or whatever is a pretty good inconvenience compared to the other. We can't control our view shed, not completely. When this project, if this project goes forward or any solar project, we're talking about something that emits virtually, no light, that doesn't pollute your air, that won't make any sounds coming in and out of your houses. So from my point of view, would I like this or 20 houses? Certainly would like this. If I'm thinking about what I would do in your situation. So I guess I'll just leave it there. Anybody else would like to speak? If not, there a motion, a second, or more information that we'd like to have?
I'll move that we deny the motion. Other request?
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, Mr. Day,
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel,
Yes.
Mr. Lyons,
No.
Mr. Lewis,
No.
and the chair votes no. So so the motion does not pass. Right.
I'm sorry, you're right. Yeah.
And we entertain another motion? What would you like to do?
Entertain a different motion.
Entertain a different motion?
I support the landowner's rights and the farmer's right to decide what's the highest and best use for his land with reasonable accommodations, which I believe the developer has made. And there are sound zoning principles involved that we have used as that test. So I must move that we approve.
Do I have a second?
I think you can't compare this site to what's been done in Fairfield. I think we've learned from our mistakes. The company's been very good to deal with. The method of installation will be different. And we need to, as we consider these, keep improving what we're asking of people. And hopefully we'll continue to get better. So we'll second the motion to approve.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Lyons.
Yes.
Mr. Day,
No.
Mr. McDaniel,
No.
and the chair votes yes. Okay, motion passes. Spencer, help me make sure I don't skip anything. We are now item 11.
10.
10.
Yes, sure can.
All right. Consideration of the provisional adoption of FY 2025-29 capital improvement plan, the CIP. Mr. Harrison.
Yes, ma'am. Just a brief overview. There has been no changes recommended since the presentation at your December meeting, but the total funds 372, which is our construction projects fund for FY 25 is $801,875. For the 5-year period is $2,081,007. For Fund 376, the total for FY 25 is proposed for at $1,091,600, and for a 5-year, $3,621,469. Mr. Suter had he had asked me a question about how much the proposed cost for the South River went up than the current CIP, and there was only a small increase of $3,663 for the proposed increase. I also want to mention again, 2 of the projects are for a total of $100,000 is will be a planned carryover from FY 24 to FY 25. I have already discussed some capital reserve discussions with Mr. Suter, which I will be presenting to the Finance Committee at our first FY 25 budget meeting. But as you've seen from the audit, our position is strong, so I think we can, just briefly, I won't go into weeds at this time, but I think a plan to increase that reserve balance even further than currently we have 2.7 million. But just to clarify, we haven't had to, our revenue has been strong enough. We haven't had to tap into that reserve to date.
Just to clarify, I don't think the idea was to increase the reserve balance further, but rather to move it over into the, a different section of the CIP, I mean, of the fund into our, capital purchases fund so that it is designated, it matches up directly with the CIP.
All right.
I still think Wayne needs a water lawnmower.
All righty. Anything?
Mr.
any-
Harrison, what I had
Yes.
asked, and I wasn't clear when I asked Mr. Suter, so that's why the question, it wasn't necessarily what it's increasing. I know that we've already been setting aside funds for some of these projects. So on the CIP sheets, when we see them and we're reviewing them, what I would like for you to add moving forward is how much is already in the existing budget? How much have we already set aside for these projects? And how much will we need additionally to set aside this particular year for these projects? Because it's not that we need to set aside $1,091,000 in FY25. We already have some of that set aside.
Yes, sir. We currently have 2.7 million set aside. Thank you for that clarification. And I can point that, I'll be more clear about that at the finance committee meetings.
And would it also be clear to say that by approving these, we really are only approving the FY25?
That is, you're only committing.
Right. So we're not committing to everything, not only in this CIP. I've already heard about how we've approved to build all these gymnasiums. We haven't committed to anything beyond FY25.
No, yes, sir. Actually, again, this is just a provisional adoption. The adoption of the CIP will not be until April, but even the CIP itself, the budget controls.
Right,
So
but even in April, we were only
you're only doing
committing to 1 year.
You're only committing to
The rest of it is things that people would like to see.
Aspirational.
Right.
That's correct, sir.
All right. Is there anything else?
I mean, yeah, I agree with that it's provisional at this point, and it's only FY25. And I know we still have to go through budget cycle. My question would be primarily around the collection center in South River area. Is that actually going to be done in FY25? But that will take place during budget. You don't have to answer it now.
All right. That's it. Is there a motion to provisionally adopt?
So move.
All right. Do I have a second?
And I'll second that. This provisional adoption not only is the county, but also includes schools, correct?
Yes, I should point out the CIP from the schools is they're adopted. The school board adopted that one.
But it's still just a provisional from us.
Until you fund it. Yes, sir.
Great. Mr. Lyons?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
And I vote yes. All righty. Consideration to set public hearing for South River property lease to Donnell Clark. Vicki? Oh, Ms. Huffman?
Madam Chairman, members of the board, this item you've seen a number of times before. The county acquired a number of properties on South River that were in the flood zone and were acquired as part of the South River Flood Mitigation Project. Those properties are required to remain open and pursuant to an open space policy that was adopted by the Board of Supervisors, but authorizing lease of those properties to former owners and then to adjoining landowners, at least partially to help keep them maintained. This particular one is Donnell Clark, who was the former owner of a 2.095 acre parcel of land identified as 52-3-3K. He's interested in continuing to lease the parcel for another 5 years. This will be his fourth lease, I believe. A copy of the tax map showing the location was included in your packet. The lease, his current lease expires on January 31st. And the new lease would be an annual rent of $64.05, which is comparable to what the annual taxes would be with this unimproved property. You have a proposed lease and in your packet with appropriate date changes and a change to the annual rent amount. Approval of the lease requires adoption of an ordinance following a public hearing. This request is to set the public hearing for your January 22nd meeting. And I'll be glad to answer any questions.
All right, gentlemen. Any questions or comments? And if not, is there a motion to schedule a public hearing for January 22nd?
moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Lyons?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
And I vote yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next, consideration of resolution of support for the airport feasibility study. Ms. Flint?
So included in your package was some details with regards to the Economic Development Authority meeting that happened on December the 20th, in which they approved a resolution in support of a feasibility study for a general aviation airport in Rockbridge County. That study would be conducted by the Central Shenandoah Planning District Commission. The EDA approved providing the financial commitment, which would be a 20% match of an unknown amount, and supporting that study. And then tonight we're asking for your support of the same feasibility study.
Give me while I pull it up. Find it, my copy. We have,
Ms. Flint, why
Yes.
Madam Chair is looking for the information. Would you provide us some background on the cost and how that cost is going to be funded?
So there is an unknown cost at the moment on what the feasibility study would be. The most recent feasibility study on an airport of this capacity that was done was around $200,000. So 20% of that would be a $40,000 match. That's just what we're estimating right now, but we do not know what the figure will actually be. But the EDA has committed to supporting the county's portion of the financing of that.
And that would be that includes county and city share.
County
correct?
and cities, correct,
Both cities.
correct.
Well, no, not necessarily. Actually, the cities have been approached to potentially offer some share. The local share is the 20%. So let's just take $40,000. We would hope that if this was to come to pass, that the cities would also do some contribution to the local share,
but no guarantees and.
But no guarantees, correct.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So you got a local share, then you, of that local
And-
share. Be
And the
perfect.
EDA is supportive of the project and willing to fund the county's portion
The county's
of
portion,
that.
correct.
20%.
I didn't have any problem with the EDAs. It's just that it wasn't clear in ours, that it doesn't say that in our resolution, that funding piece. And it seems to feel open-ended. For one, 40,000, how many years ago was that study? Many
Last
years.
year.
Was it just last year?
It was recent, correct.
So.
And how large would this airport be?
So general aviation
Right.
airports, and if it's okay, Mr. Buster Lewis is here. He actually has some more specific details on those items. If I can ask him
Okay.
to come up
Yeah.
and see.
Certainly.
We've asked the Virginia Department of Aviation for an estimate of acreage.
Is it, I mean, are we talking something similar the size of Shenandoah or?
No, sir. No,
Like-
much
like
smaller.
Bath
We need a
counties,
mile.
or-
I think we need a mile for a 500 foot runway.
5,000.
5,000 foot runway. and it'll probably be planned for 5,500.
Yeah, that's
And-
about the size of Shenandoah's runway.
Is it?
Yes.
I wouldn't think, but anyway. So it's,
But
we just have to see. What we're trying to do
Right.
now is to get approval for a feasibility study,
I
decide
understand
whether
that.
it's even you know.
I'm just
possible.
trying to get my head around
Yeah.
how big an airport we're talking about. I'm just trying to find something to compare it to, if it's gonna be
The long-
smaller.
Just,
than
I'd see the
Shenandoah.
long runway and a little width where you may have an office.
it would not have all the features,
Right.
so to speak, that,
Yeah,
that
I'm just
Shenandoah.
trying to, we're not gonna have
Have you, Mountain Empire, have you ever seen Mountain Empire?
runs along the
On side
interstate, yeah.
81?
Yeah,
That's that's what I see when I hear their descriptions. Is the best one that I could.
Well, when we asked the specific question, they said that's to be determined by the
Right,
study.
right.
And I said, I want something more, sorry.
You mean the size and what
Yes,
they
ma'am.
can do, that this, because we list the things that this would do but not included. Is that part of the feasibility
What
study?
things not in?
Under whereas, well, they're all under whereas, aren't they? But on the second item, the Rockbridge region understands the important economic benefits that a general aviation airport would bring to the region, including but not limited to. So would the feasibility study address any of those things of whether that the size of our
It's gonna be very comprehensive, and but these things just fit in. There are in the three whereases down. It says that the feasibility study would provide for in-depth analysis of the potential project, a market condition analysis, an in-depth look at competition, which we already know would be nothing because they've declared this a void area, and recommendations for state selection analysis. So, and that's what they're depending on that study to make it happen.
So the feasibility study would determine whether these items would fit in this area.
Okay,
That's true.
so it
For
should
instance, a training
technically,
facility.
be could, right?
Could,
So
yeah,
could bring
sure.
to the region.
Good for you, correct.
How can you say that there'd be no competition? It's airport in Rockbridge County when you have one 50 miles down the road in Roanoke.
Those are commercial airports. This is a small private plane airport.
So
They,
why would we want to build an airport for private planes?
if you look at the second whereas, it explains that. It's a boom for economic development in a community. It's been proven all over the state where these happen. And the whole point is that it's a magnet for economic development of all sorts. And that's why that's going to lower our taxes, and that's the real reason. We have to, we obviously we'll see when we've got 17 entities and universities and citizens who are going to write endorsement letters, and they're going to say, this will be good for us. And I think that'll be very convincing. We haven't gotten those until after we know we've got a deal, and that's the same reason we don't have from the cities their commitment, Leslie. The way they operate is you commit and then we'll consider. That's just the way it works, right, Spencer? That's what you've taught me.
Not always, but
But generally. So that's why we spoke to them
We
earlier.
commit as a community to the study.
Yes.
Is that right? And that's what we're
Yeah.
discussing
And-
now.
And this body has to be the one that does that, according to the law.
I understand. I just, like everybody, want to make sure that all of our partners, because if City of Lexington, Buena Vista is not interested in this project, then our,
Well, they have been talked with. It's not that they haven't signed an
Exactly.
agreement because we can't yet, but the
right, I
leadership
understand that, but one way of knowing that is whether they're interested in ponying up money for the study. And so I think that from a few of us, we were just wanted our wanted that explicit in this.
Madam Chair, if I may, last year when this came about, I had discussions with both mayors and the discussion was somewhat centered around how we're gonna pay for this. And nobody signed. No, there's no signature nowhere guaranteeing this. But the discussion was, Rockbridge County would look at picking up 50% of the 20% cost, and then each of the cities would pick up 25. So if it's 40,000, it'd be 20 for Rockbridge and 10 for each of the cities, is what we discussed. Now that, like I said, nobody has signed and nothing is concrete, but that has been discussed with both mayors.
Did you say 40%?
20% of the 200 is 40,000. So
Right.
50% of that being Rockbridge's share per se.
Okay.
would
And
be
then 25 and 25. Okay.
Discussion take place?
At the end of last year.
And the economic development is gonna pick up the county's portion, right? Well, the EDA,
The
right,
EDA is
EDA,
committed to that.
willing to, they're committed to that.
Mr. Day, at our mayors and chairs
Well, not
meeting, I had
according to what
a
we're
discussion with
saying.
them about this
The problem.
in December.
County, ours doesn't say the EDA.
Madam Chairman, the commitment is required to be from the Board of Supervisors. It can't be contingent on something else. So this has been drafted for the board to make that commitment. And that's what's required by the State Department of Aviation. You have a resolution as backup to that from the EDA where they are committing to you, the Board of Supervisors.
Thank you.
To make that
Thank you.
payment.
Thank you for clarifying that. That
Yes,
makes it very clear. Okay.
And if the cost of the study turns out to be $1 million, does this resolution hold us down to move forward?
I don't think you've appropriated anything at this point.
Okay, so
Everything is subject to appropriation.
this is just like a fancy letter of support.
Well, at the last EDA meeting, the EDA discussed it. I thought they had some very good commentary around it about the economic advantages of such a facility. And this is a project that, under the EDA's leadership, they're pushing forward to the supervisors as a recommendation. But this could have significant impact to our community through economic development. That's one of their areas of expertise. That's what we asked them to do. That's what they have done.
And I'll note that both our chair and vice chair for the EDA are here in the audience tonight.
Welcome.
The other thing, Mr. Lewis, if you could just expand on a little bit, I know it's been some talk about, well, this is just for the study, and then what's going to happen if you have to pay for it, and this, that, and the other. It's my understanding that there are federal dollars out there that could help with that. And at the EDA meeting, there was even some discussion about, that the facility could potentially pay for itself with hangar space and stuff like that. And those dollars could be contributed by USDA, which is they've done at other airports, correct?
Yes, sir. Expansion, but they wouldn't be in the original project. But as far as ultimate cost, didn't want to go there because we didn't want people to get all excited about, well, it's going to be this side or that side. We don't know that yet. And so
I'm not necessarily asking you dollar amounts. I'm asking you where the revenue sources could come from.
Well, if a project is accepted by the FAA and built, they will pay 90% of the cost. And the state will pay 8%, and the local will pay 2%. But we don't know, and we also don't know the ultimate cost of the project. But that's pretty good contribution for a little airport built in Rockbridge. And so that's what
That's the way it sits. And this is just a little inside story. The FAF, the VDOA is so enamored of the idea that we would do this, that they're negotiating with the FAA, this probably ought to be off the record, to be partners in the project, which would eliminate the local share of the cost of the building if they became full partners instead of just 90% partners. But and that's on the record from them.
The 90%, Mr. Lewis, that you're talking about, does that include acquiring the property?
Oh, yes. Yes, sir.
It would be a percentage of the total cost of development,
Yes,
correct?
Well, I think we're putting the cart before the horse, and that's why it's important to do a study. Because before you go down all these roads, it might not be feasible at all. So
And that's the
Yeah,
requested
I-
procedure from.
you
the-
and I are thinking too much alike, Mr. Lewis. But
Well, I'm sure something will change.
okay.
Right now, let's go. Let's fly with it.
All righty.
No,
With that.
I'm all for a little
with-
education.
With that, maybe we can move on with the motion.
So we develop and build this airport. What is that going to do for Rockbridge County?
So there is the possible economic benefits of the tax revenue that could come with it, the support that it provides to existing businesses should they decide that they would like to utilize the airport. The horse center, for instance, is one that's been mentioned a time or two, flying in horse owners versus them flying into Roanoke and having to drive up here. So there are potential economic benefits of it.
All that would be highlighted and examined in the
In the
study.
study.
Right.
It would also determine whether it's feasible to have a training center here or not. It would determine whether ag uses would be conducive or not. The feasibility study would determine whether all of these potential wood brings could actually happen.
All righty. Well, anything else?
Ms. Huffman,
Yes, sir.
is it? I know the EDA is contributing to the county's portion of the cost. In making a motion for approval, should it be included in the motion that we're only expecting to pay 50% of the cost? Or should we just leave that out and let negotiations take place with the city?
I think probably if you want to place a limitation on that cost, you could do that as a separate motion. Or incorporate it into the final part where you place like a cap on what you would pay.
Mr. McDaniel, if I might add, the study is by RFP, is it not? So
It will be,
so-
but that's what you would contract with the CSPDC to take
I
care
understand,
of.
that's what I'm saying. So what I'm getting at is we could make more of a decision at the time when the RFP comes back. We don't have to accept that, right?
Correct.
So to the point of making sure there's no runaway thing here. I mean, I was just thinking it would handle itself. when
Well,
we-
this
when we
doesn't
come to that.
appropriate any funds.
Right, that's right.
So once you do the RFP and they come back and say it's going to cost you $50,000, we can say, no, we're not appropriate 50,000. It's a moot point.
I'll make a motion in support of the resolution, the feasibility study.
All right, Mr. McDaniel. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Mr. McDaniel,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Lyons,
Yes.
Mr. Day,
No.
And the chair votes yes.
Madam Chair, if I may, while we're on this subject, obviously this is a big undertaking that's going to require updates and knowledge and to keep track. And I appreciate Ms. Flint and Mr. Lewis providing us with information. What I might recommend for the supervisors to consider is, setting up a committee for this, maybe with a Board of Supervisor representative, EDA representative, Ms. Flint, Mr. Lewis, just to keep the EDA as well as the Board of Supervisors constantly up to date with this process.
I think that would be a great
The
idea.
EDA also requested, they want to be kept up to date on this process as well.
Well, can't an EDA, the EDA representative from the board, can't they do that at our monthly meeting? No. Do you want to? No one. Who would you like to do that? I guess, how do you want that done?
Might I suggest that this is something that may be what the ad hoc committee was designed for? Unless there are two people that want to serve, and you haven't selected your ad hoc committee yet for the year as well. So
I was thinking just one representative.
Okay.
Just to update.
We can have that discussion later. Right. But I think that's a good idea to be, and I don't think that, I think the public needs to be brought along. And I will tell you, I can't tell you, I probably had 5 people approach me and thought that they could get a commercial flight into Rockbridge County with this. So there is a little bit of education that might need to be had on this. So, all righty. We'll move on. Consideration of interest payment request for Rockbridge Bass Volunteer Fire Department.
Madam Chair, members of the board, thank you for the opportunity. For many years, as you all are aware, you've supported supplying the interest payments for fire departments and rescue squads that decide they have a need, go after that need, and you all cover the interest at a as needed basis. We do have a cap of $50,000 a year. For this particular process, the Rockbridge Bass Volunteer Fire Department has came upon the need of buying a used fire engine for their department. This is actually going to be, even though it's used, it's going to be a step up for their department. They've presented the request to the Volunteer Fire and EMS Association, who has approved for me to bring this request to you all for consideration. They will be purchasing a 2000 model KME fire engine, carry 1,000 gallons of water, 50 gallons of foam. This will allow them to be able to carry their extrication equipment and things that they need, instead of taking multiple vehicles out of the fire station as they currently do. With this request, as you can see, I provided the FY24 total and then the FY25 looking ahead. And then as things come off through the years, it continues to have a balance there. This year for FY24, if approved, you can see their interest payment is $3,550. With that included, we'll still have a balance in the $50,000 budget line of $4,300. And then again, the reason this interest payment is less than the FY25 interest payment of $4,800 is because this is only a partial year. Next year will be the full 12 months. They're only making 5 annual payments at this particular rate. So we do have the funds available for this particular purchase. And again, there is a need there. The Fire and EMS Association supports the need, and I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Just another plus, it'll keep, you mentioned they won't have to take all the vehicles out of the station, which keeps that many more vehicles off the side of the interstate.
Correct.
you know, is what you educated me on. So that's a
So
real-
for their situation, they not normally run interstate responses as a first or second due agency, but there are from time to time the need where they will respond for assistance on the interstate in areas where they may need extrication equipment. So everything will be on one apparatus for them, similar to what it is for other departments. So it will be a benefit for them.
One other question. I don't believe that 85,000 was the total purchase price, correct?
No, I don't really understand. I don't have that data in front of me to see what the exact. I think they may have borrowed just what they needed or what they felt was.
That's what my understanding is. I was congratulating them on the fact that they have raised money, saved money, and have put some of that towards this. So
Yes, sir.
they're not borrowing the entire amount. So it's just a good blend for the department.
Great.
With that, I move we support
Thank
the
you.
request.
Thank you. Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. McDaniel.
Yes.
Mr. Lyons.
Yes.
Mr. Day.
Yes.
And I vote yes. All righty, then we'll move on to appointments made annually by the chairperson, or chair. I think I'll go with chair, just a note there. All right, Finance Committee. This will begin as of July 1. That will be Supervisor Lyons and Supervisor McDaniel. Building and Grounds Committee will be Supervisor Ayers and Supervisor Lyons. Solid Waste Committee, Supervisor Lyons, Supervisor Day. Personnel Committee, Supervisor Day, Supervisor Lewis. Public Safety Committee, Supervisor Ayers, Supervisor Day. Economic Development Committee, Supervisor Lewis and Supervisor McDaniel. Ad hoc Committee will be Supervisor Lyons and Supervisor McDaniel. Board Liaison to the Virginia Horse Center will be Supervisor Lewis. Board Liaison to the Chamber of Commerce would be Supervisor Lyons. And Board Liaison to the Rockbridge Regional Fair will be Supervisor Day. The only other committee the board has is the Executive Committee, which is comprised of the chair and the vice chair. Of course, the duties of the committee will remain the same with the exception of the bi-monthly meetings with the school board's Executive Committee. I think that we have a good synergy going, and for these purposes, I would like Supervisor McDaniel to continue to serve with me in that capacity.
Excuse me, Ms. Ayers, and maybe I'm wrong, but is there an appointment to the, which you serve, to the tourism board also? Is that annual?
Is that annual? No, it's a board position of 3 years, 4 years. Would you like to do it next time? I think it might be coming up soon.
I would not. I think you're doing fine.
I might be able to
But,
read something in our next meeting.
I want to make sure somebody would say, trust me, as I've said,
I am there
economic
every
development
meeting.
is not completely tourism, but it is very important.
I am there every meeting. Thank you.
Congrats.
Okay. The Blue Ridge, let's see, Blue Ridge Resource Authority. Current members on the BRRA include Ayers, Day, McDaniel, Lyons, and Daniel Truxell. Is there a motion to reappoint the current members for this 2024?
So moved.
All right, Mr. McDaniel, and do I have a second?
Second.
All right. I'm sorry, Mr. Lewis, was that you?
Yes, you will.
Okay. Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Lyons?
Yes.
Mr. Day? And I vote yes. Rockbridge Regional Jail Commission Annual Appointments. Current members on the Jail Commission include Sheriff Funkhauser, Mr. Suter, Edward Hoskin Jr., and Jeff Schaefer. Is there a motion to reappoint the current members on the Jail Commission for 2024? All right, that's Mr. McDaniel. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, Mr. McDaniel,
Yes.
Mr. Lyons,
Yes.
Mr. Day.
I have a question, but yes.
Oh, sorry. You
Uh,
have,
Now, are we sure that these members are willing to serve again?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
I would, one clarification too, you're not actually making the appointment for Mr. Jeff Schaefer. You appointed I believe, a 3-year term last year, so his will run through the end of next year.
Yeah, but I was wondering about Ed, but he's willing.
Yes, I talked to Mr. Hoskin today.
all right. Mr. Day.
Yes.
And I vote yes. Okay, where are we? Community Services Board. Consideration of replacement for Bruce Siegler, term expired 12/31/2023. There weren't any applications for this. This appointment will be added to the January 22nd.
Madam Chair, may I ask a
Yes.
question? Mr. Suter, is that the particular board that there's discussions about possibly lowering the number of people that serve on it?
There have been discussions on that, but I did talk with the director the other day, Kim Shaw, and well, the other day, a few weeks ago. And I think if that was a consideration, I think she wanted to think about that in the next year and do some planning. We also need to figure out what the viability of actually reducing that from a 15-member board to a 10-member board, because there's a lot of different, there's some things that you have to have.
State requirements that have to be met for all the, for the appointees to that board.
And wanted to make sure that we're not really stepping into something, putting the board and that board in a bad position by not being able to appoint folks. We got to make sure that a reduction will still meet the state requirements, that you've still got
Still meet the numbers.
the numbers required, the percentages.
I understand, but if at all possible, 15-member board is too many. Reduction makes sense.
Well, it looks like that might happen anyway, open board seats. Alrighty, let's then move on to, and then same thing, Community Services Board, Torben Pedersen. And that will also, for that position, there weren't any applications, so this appointment will be added to the January 22nd. Consideration of appointment and citizen to the Solar Committee. In November, the board determined to form a solar committee to study the solar issue and provide feedback to the board for consideration. And the membership included one member appointed to the by the Farm Bureau, one from RAC, one member from Planning Commission, one member of the Board of Supervisors, and one member of the public appointed at large. We have to date from the Farm Bureau, Max Smith, from RAC, Bob Biersack, from Planning Commission, David Whitmore, and from Board of Supervisors, me. We've received 2 citizen applications, which have been shared with the board: Bob Gilbert of the Buffalo District and John Campbell of the South River District. Now, gentlemen, originally we had decided on one. We had 2 applications. We can pick one of those 2, or we can consider revising the composition of the committee and selecting both.
May I ask Mr. Sladen if changing the composition of the committee, how that would impact him?
I don't foresee any substantial impacts to the committee. Obviously go to an even number, but I'm not anticipating voting or roll calls or, that type of thing. So, in fact, when going back through it, we were trying to recall if we did it by motion or just by consensus, and it was by consensus, and there was some latitude given there. I think it was even mentioned that 6, the number 6 as well. So I don't foresee any issues on that motion.
I just have to say I'm very supportive of both of the gentlemen, but I was just going on the technicality that we were looking for one. So I'm a little leery just from that reason to change the composition that we had decided on. I understand that we can, but my vision would be just to prefer to have one.
And other people's preferences?
Well, I think unusual that we get 2 good candidates, and especially I was very impressed with Mr. Campbell and his knowledge of solar panels and fields and incorporating farming in with the practices. And of course, Bob Gilbert is an outstanding candidate too. I don't want to create any problems with anybody, but I think since you got two highly qualified people, I know some other people might have thought we were going to do one, and I understand that, but I'd like to take advantage of these two highly qualified candidates.
All right. Mr. Day, your preference?
I agree with Mr. Lyons.
Okay. Your preference?
Yeah, I'm fine either way. So
Okay. I believe I'd like to go with both. And so how would you like us to do that?
This has to be a consensus, right?
Oh, yes, can be a consensus to go with both and and you will notify both gentlemen of that?
Yes. I would like to make one more comment. From time to time, we get applications from citizens. We always forward those along. So I think we had one pending one last year, which was long before any solar committee. So these were the only two individuals that reached out to the Office of Community Development pertaining to the solar committee. So want to clarify that as well.
Thank you. All righty. Let's see, where am I now? All righty, are there any questions or comments?
staff report.
Or, I'm sorry, on the reports.
I have no comments. I'll make a motion for approval as presented.
All righty.
Second.
All right, Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Lyons?
Yes.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
And I vote yes. Are there any comments by the board or committee updates? We do have one reminder. The Rockbridge County Administrator Office Building will be closed on Monday, January 15th in observance of Martin Luther King Jr. Day. The Board of Supervisors is scheduled to hold a joint meeting with the school board as advertised on 2024 schedule just adopted. Information on that meeting will be published on the county's website as well as board docs as soon as we receive confirmation of the meeting. Should the meeting be canceled, notices will be published on the county's website and board docs.
But it will be on the 18th, correct?
I
They're not
think
gonna,
the whole point was it wasn't scheduled yet.
oh,
Not
as far as
confirmed.
the calendar.
Yes, as far as the calendar goes.
So it is the 18th?
Pretty sure it is.
It's
Okay,
listed.
as advertised.
Yeah.
Okay. The January 18th is our first meeting.
Because if they start shuffling things, a lot of things are already booked. So
Alrighty. In addition, our regular meeting is January 22nd, and I would like to also acknowledge that our new treasurer, Missy Weitzel, is in attendance and welcome you and thank you for being here. All right.
make us
I
plenty of
do have
money.
one
Sure.
committee update. I think we all have heard that there will be some leadership change at the horse center. And the new gentleman should be on the ground in the next week or so. So I know Mr. Petty will be introducing him around the community. So I just want everybody to know that he's going to be here soon and we'll all get to meet him and introduce ourselves. And the segue into, I would encourage the new tourism director to do that as well. If you might ask
Absolutely.
her to see if she could reach out or
Come to the next meeting.
or I'll do the same thing.
All righty.
Yeah. But it'd be great to just to visit with her too.
Okay, thank you. I will do that. All righty. Anything else? If not, is there a motion to adjourn this meeting? All righty. Mr. Lyons,
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel, Mr. Day,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis, and the chair votes yes. Thank you all.
Yes, too.
Oh, I think I asked you.
I missed it.
Hey, I've got to call Daniel.
Yeah, he got reappointed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was just, there was something. There's something coming right. Yeah. It was on the news again. I saw a blurb about, setting up a.
Good job.